Hello there, and welcome to the endless void. I'm so glad you found your way here, because tonight we'll be drifting through the deep, quiet blue of a world that covers most of our planet. Wherever you are right now, let this be your invitation to slow down. Let the noise of the day soften. Let your muscles unwind, and let your thoughts sink gently like sand falling through still water. Tonight, we're going beneath the waves. The sea is Earth's oldest embrace, a vast and ancient body of water that holds more mysteries than all the libraries ever written. From glowing tides to singing whales, from underwater rivers to creatures that sleep while swimming, the ocean is alive in ways that will surprise you, calm you, and fill you with quiet wonder. Some of what you hear may change how you think about water forever. Other facts might simply wash over you like a gentle wave, soft, rhythmic, and deeply soothing. If this kind of peaceful wonder brings you calm or sparks your curiosity, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, let yourself get comfortable. Take a deep breath and let's begin this slow and soothing journey through the quiet miracles of the sea. The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth. We call it Earth, but perhaps we should call it ocean. More than 70% of our planet's surface is covered by water, and most of it is sea. If you could look at our world from certain angles in space, you would see almost nothing but blue, a soft, swirling marble drifting in the dark. The Pacific Ocean alone is larger than all the land on Earth combined. It stretches so wide that you could fit every continent inside it and still have room left over. And yet, despite all this vastness, we have explored less than 20% of the ocean floor. The rest remains unknown, unseen, untouched. There are mountains, valleys, and plains down there that no human eye has ever glimpsed. We know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the bottom of the sea. The ocean is not just part of our world. It is most of it. A quiet, breathing wilderness that has been here long before us and will remain long after. Sea otters hold hands while they sleep in the cold, gentle waters of the northern Pacific. Sea otters do something impossibly tender. They hold hands. When a group of otters rests on the surface, they often float together in what's called a raft to keep from drifting apart while they sleep. They reach out and clasp each other's paws. Mothers wrap themselves in kelp and hold their pups close to their chests, anchoring them to the seaweed so no one floats away. It's not just adorable, it's survival. Otters need to stay together for warmth and protection, and they've developed this quiet, beautiful habit to make sure the current doesn't separate them during rest. In the gray mist of the Pacific, a cluster of otters bobs gently on the tide, eyes closed, paws linked, rocking softly like a living lullaby. The ocean produces more than half the oxygen you breathe. We often thank trees and forests for the air we breathe, and they deserve it. But the ocean deserves just as much gratitude, if not more. Tiny organisms called phytoplankton, drifting near the surface of the sea, perform photosynthesis just like plants on land. They absorb sunlight, take in carbon dioxide, and release oxygen despite being invisible to the naked eye. These microscopic creatures produce more than 50% of the world's breathable oxygen. Every second breath you take is a gift from the sea. They form the invisible foundation of marine food chains, feeding everything from the tiniest shrimp to the largest whales. But their role in the atmosphere is just as vital. Without them, the balance of gases in our air would shift, and so would the climate. They're not visible from shore, but they're everywhere, a shimmering green cloud beneath the waves. With each exhale, remember, the ocean is breathing with you. There are underwater lakes and rivers beneath the sea. It sounds impossible, but deep beneath the ocean's surface, there are lakes. Not metaphorical ones, but actual pools of water sitting on the ocean floor, separate and distinct from the sea around them. These are called brine pools. They form when ancient salt deposits dissolve and create water, so dense and salty that it sinks and settles into depressions on the seafloor. The difference in salinity is so extreme that the brine water doesn't mix with the surrounding ocean. It sits there with its own shoreline, its own surface, and even its own waves. Some of these underwater lakes are toxic to most marine life. Fish or crabs that wander in may go into shock from the salt and chemical concentration, but along the edges, specialized organisms thrive, feeding on the chemical energy these pools provide. In the darkest corners of the ocean, there are beaches no human will ever walk on, and lakes no boat will ever cross. The sea holds worlds within worlds. Whale songs can travel across entire oceans. Beneath the surface of the sea, songs drift through the dark. Long, slow, and haunting, the calls of blue whales and humpbacks can travel for thousands of miles underwater. These low-frequency vocalizations are among the loudest and deepest sounds made by any animal, and in the quiet depths they can echo from coast to coast. Whales use these songs to find mates, navigate, and communicate across vast distances. Each population has its own dialect, and their songs can evolve over time, passed down like oral traditions. Some species, like the humpback, create long, intricate melodies that shift year by year, with different whales contributing new phrases. We don't fully understand everything they're saying, but we know it matters. These are not random sounds. They are messages shared across a watery world, among creatures who have roamed Earth's oceans for longer than any human memory. And somewhere right now, in the deep blue dark, a whale is singing to another whale 1,000 miles away. The Mariana Trench is deeper than Mount Everest is tall. If you could take Mount Everest, the tallest peak on land, and drop it into the Mariana Trench in the western Pacific, its summit would still be more than a mile beneath the surface. The deepest known point, called Challenger Deep, plunges nearly 36,000 feet below sea level. Down there, the pressure is more than 1,000 times what you feel standing on the shore. The temperature hovers just above freezing. No sunlight has ever reached the bottom, and yet life exists there. Tiny shrimp-like creatures called amphipods scuttle along the sediment. Microbes thrive in the crushing darkness. When filmmaker James Cameron descended to the bottom in 2012, he described it as a desolate lunar landscape. But even in that stillness, in the most extreme place on the planet, something was alive. The ocean's deepest places are not empty. They're simply waiting to be understood. Coral reefs support nearly a quarter of all marine life. Coral reefs are among the most vibrant ecosystems on Earth, and they're built not by rocks or plants, but by animals. Each coral is a colony of tiny creatures called They feed by extending stinging tentacles to catch plankton, and they build their homes by secreting calcium carbonate, creating the stony skeletons that form reefs. Over time, these skeletons accumulate, forming massive underwater structures that can stretch for hundreds of miles. And within these reefs, life flourishes. Fish, crustaceans, mollusks, sea turtles, and countless others. Despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, coral reefs support nearly a quarter of all marine species. They are living cities built not by design, but by the slow labor of millions of unseen architects. Delicate, colorful, and deeply vulnerable, reefs are a reminder of how much life can rise from the smallest hands. The ocean has its own snowfall. In the deep sea, far below the sunlit surface, something falls constantly and silently through the water. Scientists call it marine snow. It's a gentle, continuous shower of organic particles, dead plankton, fecal matter, bits of decayed plants, and tiny shells, drifting slowly downward from the sunlit zone above. This quiet snowfall can take weeks to reach the ocean floor, sinking through miles of dark water. And when it arrives, it feeds an entire ecosystem. Deep-sea creatures, from worms to sea cucumbers, depend on this slow rain of nutrients for survival. Marine snow also plays a role in the carbon cycle. As particles sink, they carry carbon from the surface to the deep ocean, helping to regulate the planet's climate. It's a subtle, beautiful system, a quiet nourishment falling through the dark like snow through a winter sky. Even in the deepest places, the sea feeds itself from above. Bioluminescent creatures light up the deep sea in the deepest parts of the ocean, where sunlight never reaches. The darkness is not complete. It glows. Bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions, is astonishingly common in the deep sea. Some scientists estimate that up to 90% of deep-sea creatures can produce their own light. Jellyfish pulse with soft blue and green halos. Anglerfish dangle glowing lures above their mouths. Tiny dinoflagellates near the surface flash when disturbed, creating shimmering waves of light. An enzyme called luciferase interacts with a light-producing molecule called luciferin, releasing energy as visible light. Simple, silent, and stunning. These organisms use light for everything from hunting and defense to communication and camouflage. In the ocean's permanent midnight, life has written its own constellations, flickering, drifting, and quietly magnificent, a galaxy beneath the waves. Sound travels about 4.5 times faster in water than in air. Drop a pebble into a pool and the ripple spreads. But sound in water does something far more remarkable. It travels faster, farther, and with greater clarity than it does through air. In the ocean, sound moves at roughly 1,500 meters per second, compared to about 340 in air. This is because water is denser and more elastic, allowing sound waves to compress and expand more efficiently. Whales, dolphins, and many fish exploit this property for communication, navigation, and hunting. There's even a layer in the ocean called the SOFAR channel, a zone where temperature and pressure conditions allow sound to travel enormous distances with almost no loss. Scientists once detected whale calls in this channel that had traveled across an entire ocean basin. In the sea, a whisper can carry for thousands of miles. The ocean is not silent. It's one of the most acoustically rich environments on Earth. Seahorses are the only animals where the male gives birth in the gentle sway of seagrass beds and coral reefs. Seahorses drift upright like tiny, armored dancers. They're slow, delicate, and full of surprises. Among them is one of the most unusual reproductive strategies in the animal kingdom. The male carries the babies. During mating, the female deposits her eggs into a specialized pouch on the male's belly. There, he fertilizes them and carries them for several weeks, providing oxygen and nutrients through a network of blood vessels in the pouch lining. When the time comes, he goes through contractions and releases dozens, sometimes hundreds, of tiny, fully formed seahorses into the water. It's a reversal of nearly every pattern we associate with pregnancy, and it works beautifully in the quiet currents. The seahorse father drifts, patient and full of life, a gentle reminder that nature doesn't follow our rules. It writes its own. The longest mountain range on Earth is underwater. When we think of great mountain ranges, we imagine the Himalayas, the Andes, or the Rockies. But the longest mountain range on the planet is one most people will never see. The mid-ocean ridge stretches for more than 40,000 miles along the floor of the world's oceans, winding like a seam around the globe. It runs through the Atlantic, curves around Africa, passes beneath the Indian Ocean, and extends into the Pacific. Along this ridge, tectonic plates pull apart, and new crust is born from molten rock rising from the Earth's mantle. The process is slow, just a few centimeters per year, but it has been reshaping the planet for hundreds of millions of years. Hydrothermal vents along the ridge spew mineral-rich water into the surrounding sea, supporting bizarre ecosystems that thrive without sunlight. Mountains taller than anything in Europe rise and fall unseen beneath the waves. The ocean floor is not flat. It's a landscape as dramatic as any continent, hidden beneath miles of dark, quiet water. Sea turtles navigate using the Earth's magnetic field every year. Sea turtles travel thousands of miles across open ocean, returning with astonishing precision to the very beaches where they were born. How they find their way has puzzled scientists for decades. The answer, it seems, lies in the Earth itself. Sea turtles can detect the planet's magnetic field, sensing both its intensity and its angle. These magnetic signatures vary across the globe, creating an invisible map that the turtles read like a compass and a chart combined. Bond from the moment they hatch and scramble across the sand into the sea. They imprint on the magnetic signature of their home beach. Years later, after crossing entire ocean basins, they use that imprint to return. It's not memory in the way we understand it. It's something deeper, an ancient sense woven into their cells. Across the open water, guided by forces we cannot see, the turtle swims home. The ocean's tides are pulled by the moon. Twice each day, the sea rises and falls in a rhythm as old as the moon itself. Tides are caused by the gravitational pull of the moon and, to a lesser extent, the sun. As the moon orbits the Earth, its gravity tugs on the ocean, creating a bulge of water on the side nearest to it and another on the opposite side. The result is a gentle, predictable breathing of the sea, a rising and falling that shapes coastlines, influences ecosystems, and governs the lives of countless creatures. Tide pools fill and drain, crabs scurry. Anemones open and close. Entire communities of organisms have adapted their rhythms to this lunar pulse. In a way, the moon is conducting the orchestra of the shore, and every wave that washes over your feet carries the pull of a world 240,000 miles away. The sea is not separate from the sky. It dances with the moon. Seagrass meadows are among the most powerful carbon sinks on Earth. Beneath the shallow coastal waters, vast meadows of seagrass sway gently in the current. They look unassuming, simple green blades rooted in sand. But these underwater prairies are among the most important ecosystems on the planet. Seagrass captures carbon dioxide from the water up to 3 times faster than tropical rainforests can absorb it from the air. The carbon is stored in the sediment beneath the meadows, locked away for centuries or even millennia. These meadows also produce oxygen, filter water, stabilize the seafloor, and provide nursery habitats for fish, shrimp, and sea turtles. Manatees and dugongs graze on them like underwater cattle. And yet, seagrass is disappearing at an alarming rate, lost to pollution, development, and warming waters. The quiet meadow beneath the waves does so much with so little. A garden you'll never see, breathing for a world that rarely notices. There are more viruses in the ocean than stars in the observable universe. The number is almost impossible to comprehend. Scientists estimate there are roughly 10 to the 31st power viruses in the sea. That's 10 nonillion, more than all the stars in the observable universe combined. Most of these viruses are bacteriophages, meaning they infect bacteria, not animals or humans. They play a crucial role in the marine ecosystem by controlling bacterial populations, recycling nutrients, and driving evolution through gene transfer every day. Marine viruses kill roughly 20 to 40% of all ocean bacteria, releasing their contents back into the water as dissolved organic matter. This fuels the microbial food web and helps cycle carbon through the sea. A single milliliter of seawater can contain 10 million viruses. They are invisible, countless, and everywhere. Not as enemies, but as essential gears in the ocean's living machinery. The smallest things in the sea may be the most powerful of all. The immortal jellyfish can reset its own life cycle near the warm coastal waters of the Mediterranean. And in oceans around the world drifts a creature that defies one of nature's most universal laws. The Torotopsis dohrnii, often called the immortal jellyfish, has a remarkable ability. When injured, aged, or threatened, it can revert its body to an earlier stage of life, like a butterfly turning back into a caterpillar. It returns to its polyp form, the jellyfish equivalent of childhood, and begins again. This process isn't just theoretical, it's been observed repeatedly in laboratories. The jellyfish can cycle through its life stages over and over, potentially forever, unless it's eaten or destroyed by disease. While it doesn't hold the key to eternal life for humans, it reminds us that nature's imagination far exceeds our own. Here, floating quietly in the sea, is a creature that rewinds time, not once, but again and again. The Sargasso Sea is the only sea with no coastline. In the middle of the North Atlantic Ocean lies a sea, unlike any other. The Sargasso Sea has no shores. It's defined not by land, but by ocean currents. For rotating currents form a boundary around it, creating a calm, warm, oval-shaped region of water that drifts slowly in a clockwise gyre. Its surface is covered with floating mats of sargassum seaweed, golden-brown algae that provides shelter and food for a unique community of creatures. Tiny crabs, shrimp, juvenile sea turtles, and fish all live among the tangled fronds. European and American eels travel thousands of miles to spawn in the Sargasso Sea, a journey that has mystified scientists for centuries. No one has ever witnessed them mating there. It remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of marine biology. The Sargasso Sea is a world apart, a sea within a sea, defined not by rock or sand, but by the slow, invisible pull of water itself. Dolphins sleep with half their brain awake. Dolphins never fully fall asleep. They can't afford to. As conscious breathers, they must actively decide to take each breath. If they fell into deep sleep the way we do, they would drown. So they've evolved a remarkable solution called unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. One half of the brain sleeps while the other remains alert, controlling breathing, watching for predators, and keeping the body moving gently through the water. Their eyes take turns staying open. One eye closes on the sleeping side, while the other stays watchful. After a period of rest, the hemispheres switch. It's not deep sleep in the way we know it, but it's enough. Dolphins can rest, recover, and dream, all while gliding through the ocean, half awake, half at peace. In the quiet current, the dolphin drifts, one eye on the world, one eye on sleep. A gentle balance of vigilance and surrender. The blue whale's heart is the size of a small car. The blue whale is the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth. Longer than any dinosaur, heavier than any creature in the fossil record, and at its center beats a heart as large as a small car. The blue whale is the largest animal that has ever lived on Earth. Longer than any dinosaur, heavier than any creature in the fossil record, and at its center beats a heart as large as a small car. This massive organ weighs around 400 pounds and pumps roughly 60 gallons of blood with every beat. At the surface, its heart rate can reach around 30 beats per minute, but during a deep dive, it slows to as few as 2 beats per minute. Conserving oxygen for the long descent, the aorta, the main artery leading from the heart, is large enough for a small child to crawl through, and the heartbeat itself can be detected from miles away with the right instruments. There is something profoundly humbling about standing in the presence of such quiet enormity. A creature so vast and yet so gentle, powered by a heart that beats slowly, steadily, in the deep blue dark. Kelp forests can grow up to 2 feet per day along the rocky coastlines of temperate seas. Kelp forests rise from the seafloor like underwater cathedrals. Their towering fronds stretch toward the surface, swaying gently in the current, filtering light into soft, golden columns. Giant kelp, one of the fastest growing organisms on the planet, can grow up to 2 feet in a single day. From a tiny spore, it can reach lengths of over 150 feet, creating dense vertical forests that rival any on land in complexity and beauty. Within these forests, life thrives. Sea otters wrap themselves in kelp to sleep. Fish dart between the fronds. Sea urchins graze at the base. Seals weave through the canopy. The entire ecosystem depends on the kelp's ability to grow, shelter, and sustain. When kelp forests are healthy, they absorb carbon dioxide protect coastlines, and support hundreds of species. They are among the ocean's most productive habitats. Forests without soil, rooted in rock and nourished by the cold. Clean sea. Parrotfish create sand by eating coral. The soft, white sand beneath your feet on a tropical beach may have come from an unexpected source, the inside of a fish. Parrotfish spend much of their day biting off chunks of coral with their powerful beak-like teeth. They're not after the coral itself, but the algae growing inside it, as they grind the coral down in a special set of teeth at the back of their throats. The calcium carbonate is digested and excreted as fine, white sand. A single parrotfish can produce up to 800 pounds of sand per year over time. The sand accumulates, building beaches, filling lagoons, and shaping entire islands. Many of the most beautiful tropical shorelines owe their existence to this humble, colorful fish. So the next time you sink your toes into warm beach sand, you may be standing on the quiet work of millions of parrotfish, grain by grain, one bite at a time. The Dead Sea is so salty that nothing sinks. Nestled between Jordan and Israel lies a body of water so dense and salty that almost nothing can sink in it. The Dead Sea, despite its name, is actually a lake, and it's one of the saltiest bodies of water on Earth, nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean. This extreme salinity means the water is far denser than a human body. If you step in, you float effortlessly, bobbing on the surface like a cork. You can lie back, spread your arms, and rest without any effort. The minerals in the water have drawn people for centuries, believed to have therapeutic properties for skin and joints. But the salt also means that almost no fish, plants, or algae can survive. Only certain extramephilic microbes call it home. The shores are rimmed with crystals, glittering formations of salt and mineral that make the landscape look otherworldly. It's a place of extremes, a sea of stillness where the water holds you gently and the silence stretches to the horizon. Antarctic waters are among the clearest on Earth in the frigid seas surrounding Antarctica. The water reaches a clarity that seems almost unreal. Visibility can extend to over 260 feet, making it some of the clearest ocean water on the planet. The reason lies in the cold. Low temperatures slow the growth of phytoplankton and suspend fewer particles, allowing light to penetrate deep into the water column. The result is an eerie, crystalline blue, like looking through liquid glass. Beneath this clarity, life moves in slow, deliberate rhythms. Giant icebergs drift overhead, casting blue-green shadows. Leopard seals glide through the water. Penguins dive in long, graceful arcs. The cold preserves everything, making the ocean feel both ancient and impossibly clean. It's one of the last truly wild places on Earth. A sea so clear you can see straight down to the stories written on its floor. The ocean floor holds more gold than all the gold on land. Dissolved in the waters of the world's oceans is an estimated 20 million tons of gold. It's there in almost every drop, but in concentrations so tiny that extracting it is far beyond current technology. There are roughly 13 billionths of a gram per liter of seawater spread across the vastness of the ocean. That adds up to an almost unimaginable fortune. Asterisk beyond what's dissolved. The ocean floor itself is scattered with gold deposits, locked in manganese crusts and hydrothermal vent systems. These deep-sea treasures have been building up for millions of years, placed there by volcanic activity and chemical precipitation. We'll probably never mine most of it, and perhaps that's for the best. The sea keeps its riches hidden, not as a vault to be opened, but as a reminder that some treasures are meant to stay where they are. Deep-sea creatures survive pressures that would crush steel at the bottom of the ocean. The weight of the water above creates pressures more than 1,000 times greater than what we experience at the surface. For most land animals, including humans, such forces would be instantly lethal. Bones would compress, lungs would collapse, cells would rupture. And yet, down there, life flourishes. Creatures like snailfish, amphipods, and deep-sea worms have evolved bodies perfectly adapted to these crushing depths. Their cells lack gas-filled spaces that would compress. Their proteins are specially shaped to function under extreme pressure. Their membranes remain flexible, where ours would stiffen and fail. Some of these organisms live their entire lives in darkness and pressure, never knowing the surface, never seeing the sun. They drift in the silent deep, feeding on marine snow and the chemical energy of hydrothermal vents in the most extreme environment on Earth. Life has not only survived, it has specialized, evolved, and quietly thrived. Clownfish are immune to the sting of their anemone homes. Among the waving tentacles of sea anemones, creatures that can sting and paralyze small prey, clownfish move freely. They nestle into the anemone's arms without fear, protected by a unique mucus coating on their skin. This coating prevents the anemone from recognizing the clownfish as prey, allowing the two to live together in a beautiful example of mutualism. The clownfish gains protection from predators, safe within the stinging tentacles. In return, it provides food, scraps, and nutrients to the anemone, and may even lure other fish into its reach. Manta develop their immunity gradually, performing a careful dance when they first encounter an anemone, brushing gently against the tentacles to build up their protective layer. It's a partnership written in chemistry and trust. In the soft glow of the reef, the clownfish darts in and out of its poisonous home, unbothered and unharmed. A tiny flame of color in a forest of stinging silk. Humpback whales compose new songs each year, in the dark waters of the world's oceans. Humpback whales create some of the most complex and beautiful sounds in the animal kingdom. Their songs can last for hours, intricate compositions of moans, cries, and rising phrases repeated in patterns that shift over time. What makes these songs truly remarkable is that they change. Each breeding season, the males in a population share the same song, but over the course of months, they collectively modify it, adding new phrases, dropping old ones, and evolving the melody together. By the following year, the song may be entirely different from the one before. Even more astonishing, songs from one population can spread to others, traveling from the coast of Australia to French Polynesia over just a few seasons. Like musical culture crossing the ocean. We don't fully understand why they sing or what the songs mean, but in their echoing voices, something profound reverberates, a reminder that art and expression may not belong only to us. Sea sponges are among the oldest animals on Earth. They don't move. They don't have brains, muscles, or organs. And yet sea sponges are animals And they've been here for an extraordinarily long time. Fossil evidence suggests sponges have existed for at least 600 million years, making them among the oldest multicellular animals on the planet, trapping bacteria and tiny particles of food. A single sponge can filter thousands of liters of water per day, quietly cleaning the ocean around it. Some sponges produce powerful chemical compounds that scientists are studying for medical applications, including potential treatments for cancer, viruses, and inflammation. They come in every color imaginable, from vivid orange and deep purple to ghostly white. Sponges remind us that simplicity is not weakness. For hundreds of millions of years, they've sat quietly on the ocean floor, filtering, surviving, and outlasting nearly every other form of animal life. The ocean absorbs about a third of all the carbon dioxide we produce. Every year, human activity releases billions of tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and every year, the ocean absorbs roughly a third of it. This process happens at the surface, where CO2 dissolves into seawater and is carried deeper by currents and marine organisms. In many ways, the ocean has been buffering the worst effects of climate change, slowing the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. But this absorption comes at a cost. As more CO2 dissolves, the water becomes more acidic, a process called ocean acidification. This shift in chemistry threatens coral reefs, shellfish, and the countless organisms that build their homes from calcium carbonate. Their shells and skeletons become thinner, more fragile, harder to maintain. The ocean is still absorbing, still helping, still carrying the weight. But it's beginning to show the strain, like a quiet friend who holds too much without complaint. The sea needs us to lighten the load. Underwater hot springs support entire ecosystems without sunlight in the darkness of the deep ocean floor. Where no light has ever reached, there are oases of life. Hydrothermal vents, cracks in the Earth's crust where mineral-rich water erupts into the cold sea, support thriving communities of organisms. Giant tube worms, ghostly white crabs, clusters of mussels, and shimmering shrimp gather around these vents, drawing energy not from the sun, but from chemicals like hydrogen sulfide. This process, called chemosynthesis, powers entire food chains, independent of photosynthesis. The water emerging from these vents can exceed 700 degrees Fahrenheit, yet life crowds around them, perfectly adapted to the heat, the dark, and the toxic chemistry. Some scientists believe life on Earth may have begun at places like these. Billions of years ago, in the warm breath of stone beneath the ancient sea. These vents are not just geological curiosities. They are windows into life's deepest origins. The ocean has a twilight zone. Between the sunlit surface and the pitch black abyss lies a mysterious layer of the ocean known as the mesopelagic zone, or the twilight zone. It stretches from about 650 feet to 3,300 feet below the surface. Here, light fades to a dim blue-gray glow. Not enough for photosynthesis, but enough for some creatures to see, just barely. This zone is home to one of the largest animal migrations on Earth. Every night, billions of organisms, fish, squid, jellyfish, and crustaceans, rise from the deep to feed near the surface, then sink again at dawn. It's called the diel vertical migration, and in terms of biomass, it dwarfs any migration on land. The Twilight Zone may contain more fish than all other ocean zones combined, though estimates are still uncertain. It's a world of shadows, where survival depends on stealth, speed, and the ability to vanish in this half-lit realm. The sea holds one of its greatest secrets, a hidden ocean of life, moving silently between light and dark. Mangrove forests protect coastlines from storms, where the land meets the sea in tropical and subtropical regions. Mangrove forests stand in the saltwater, their tangled roots reaching into the mud like ancient fingers. These remarkable trees have adapted to survive in conditions that would kill most plants. Salty water, shifting tides, and oxygen-poor soil. Their complex root systems act as natural barriers, absorbing the energy of waves, reducing storm surge, and protecting inland areas from flooding and erosion. During hurricanes and tsunamis, mangrove forests have been shown to dramatically reduce damage to coastal communities, but they do more than protect. Mangroves are nurseries for fish, crabs, and shrimp. They filter pollutants. They store carbon at rates 3 to 5 times higher than terrestrial forests. Their tangled roots create a labyrinth of shelter for juvenile marine life, giving countless species a safe place to grow before venturing into the open sea. They are not just trees, they are guardians of the coast, standing between the fury of the ocean and the fragility of the land. The Great Barrier Reef is visible from space. Off the northeastern coast of Australia lies the largest living structure on Earth. The Great Barrier Reef stretches for over 1,400 miles, a patchwork of nearly 3,000 individual reef systems and hundreds of islands. It's so vast that astronauts can see it from orbit, a pale ribbon of turquoise winding along the coastline. The reef is home to more than 1,500 species of fish, 400 types of coral, and countless invertebrates. Dugongs graze in its shallows. Sea turtles nest on its islands. Sharks patrol its edges. It took millions of years for the reef to reach its current size, built layer upon layer by tiny coral polyps no larger than a fingernail. And yet it is fragile. Rising ocean temperatures and acidification threaten its survival. Bleaching events where stressed corals expel the algae that give them color and food have become more frequent and severe. But conservation efforts continue. Scientists, divers, and communities work to protect what remains. The reef is still alive, still growing, still home to a dazzling array of life. A reminder that the greatest things can be built by the smallest hands. Some deep sea fish are nearly invisible in the ocean's darkest zones, where faint traces of light filter down from above. Some fish have evolved a remarkable trick. They've become almost invisible. Ultra-black fish, like the common fangtooth, have skin that absorbs more than 99.5% of the light that hits. This is achieved through a special arrangement of melanin pigments in their skin, packed so densely and organized so precisely that almost no light reflects back. In a world where even a faint glimmer could attract a predator or scare away prey, being invisible is a powerful advantage. These fish don't shimmer, don't glint, don't betray themselves to the darkness. They become part of it. Scientists study these pigments to develop new materials for telescopes cameras and stealth technology. But for now, the fish drift through the deep unseen, silent shapes in the void, masters of a darkness most of us will never know. Ocean currents act as a global conveyor belt beneath the waves. A vast system of currents moves water around the planet in a slow, continuous loop. Scientists call it the thermaline circulation, but it's often described as the global ocean conveyor belt, driven by differences in temperature and salinity. Cold, dense water sinks at the poles and flows along the ocean floor toward the equator. Warmer water near the surface moves in the opposite direction, carrying heat from the tropics toward the poles. This circulation takes roughly 1,000 years to complete one full cycle. It distributes heat, regulates climate, and drives the movement of nutrients and marine life across entire ocean basins. Without it, some regions would be far colder and others far warmer. Weather patterns would shift, ecosystems would collapse. The conveyor belt is the ocean's circulatory system, a heartbeat of water that keeps the planet in balance. It moves slowly, silently, and invisibly, but its effects shape the world. The Mediterranean Sea was once completely dry. About 5.5 million years ago, something extraordinary happened. The Mediterranean Sea, one of the most iconic bodies of water on Earth, dried up almost entirely. This event, known as the Messinian Salinity Crisis, occurred when tectonic shifts closed the Strait of Gibraltar, cutting the Mediterranean off from the Atlantic Ocean. Without a constant inflow of water, evaporation took over. Over hundreds of thousands of years, the sea shrank, leaving behind vast salt flats, deep canyons, and a desolate, scorching landscape thousands of feet below the surrounding land. Roughly 5.3 million years ago, the barrier broke. Water from the Atlantic poured back through the strait in a catastrophic flood known as the Zanclean Flood. Some models suggest the basin refilled in as little as a few thousand years, possibly even faster. Today, the Mediterranean sparkles under the sun, full of life, culture, and history. But beneath its waters lie the salt deposits and ancient scars of a time when the sea simply vanished. The ocean is layered like a cake. The ocean is not a uniform body of water. It has layers, each with its own temperature, salinity, light level, and community of life. The top layer, the epipelagic zone, is warm and sunlit. This is where most marine life congregates, where photosynthesis fuels the food chain, and where waves and weather interact with the sea. Below it lies the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, where light fades and creatures begin their daily migrations. Deeper still is the bathypelagic zone, the midnight zone, cold and dark, where bioluminescence replaces sunlight. The abyssopelagic zone sits below that, a realm of crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures, and at the very bottom, in the deepest trenches, lies the hydropelagic zone, named after Hades, the underworld. Each layer is a different world, governed by different rules, hosting different forms of life. The ocean is not one place. It's a vertical universe, stacked from light to dark, from warmth to cold, from known to unknown. Seahorses are among the worst swimmers in the sea, for all their beauty. Seahorses are remarkably poor swimmers. They propel themselves using a small dorsal fin that flutters up to 35 times per second, and they steer with tiny pectoral fins behind their heads. But even with all this effort, they move slowly, sometimes covering only about 5 feet per hour. In strong currents, they're easily swept away, so they anchor themselves to seagrass, coral, or sponges, using their prehensile tails, wrapping tightly and holding on. This gentle grip is their greatest tool for survival, keeping them in place while the ocean moves around them. Their upright posture, unusual among fish, actually helps them strike at tiny prey with surprising speed. They feed on small crustaceans, sucking them up through their tubular snouts in less than a millisecond in the slow, swaying world of the reef. The seahorse drifts and clings, quiet and content, a gentle creature that proves you don't need speed to survive, just patience and a good grip. Manta rays may recognize themselves in mirrors. Manta rays are among the ocean's most graceful inhabitants, gliding through the water on wings that can span over 20 feet. But their beauty is matched by something deeper. Intelligence. In studies where mantas were presented with mirrors, they behaved in ways that suggested self-awareness. Rather than treating their reflection as another animal, they examined themselves, blowing bubbles and watching the reflection respond. They repeated behaviors as if testing the connection, while the mirror test is debated among scientists. Only a handful of species have shown this kind of behavior. Great apes, dolphins, elephants, and a few birds. That a fish might join this list is extraordinary. Manta rays have the largest brain-to-body ratio of any fish. They display curiosity, playfulness, and what appears to be individual personality. In the blue expanse, the manta glides, watching, wondering, and perhaps, just perhaps, knowing itself. The longest animal ever recorded lives in the sea. It's not the blue whale. The longest animal ever documented is a Siphonophore, a colonial organism made up of thousands of individual organisms called zooids, each specialized for a different function: feeding, reproducing, swimming, or stinging. In 2020, a team of researchers discovered a Siphonophore off the coast of Western Australia that measured an estimated 150 feet long, arranged in a glowing spiral in the deep sea. Siphonophores are related to jellyfish and corals. Though they appear to be a single organism, they're actually a colony, a superorganism functioning as one unified creature. Each zooid is born from the same fertilized egg, but develops into a different form. Working together like cells in a body, they drift through the ocean in long, fragile chains, often bioluminescent, pulsing with faint light in the dark. In the deep, where few eyes ever look, the longest animal on Earth spirals quietly, a living ribbon of light in the infinite dark. Some crabs carry sea anemones as weapons. In the tropical waters of the Indo-Pacific, the pom-pom crab, also called the boxer crab, carries a sea anemone in each claw, wielding them like tiny, stinging boxing gloves. When a predator approaches, the crab waves its anemones forward, presenting the stinging tentacles as a defense. The anemones benefit from scraps of food the crab picks up and from being transported to new feeding grounds. It's a partnership of convenience and mutual benefit. If a crab loses one of its anemones, it may tear the remaining one in half, and both halves will regenerate into complete organisms. The crab never goes without its weapons. In the quiet shallows, A tiny crab dances with its living gloves, a creature armed not by tooth or claw, but by friendship and chemistry. Icefish have antifreeze in their blood, in the frigid waters surrounding Antarctica, where temperatures drop below freezing. Most fish would turn to ice, but the icefish doesn't. Its blood carries special antifreeze glycopropene that binds to tiny ice crystals and prevent them from growing. This biochemical shield allows icefish to swim freely in waters cold enough to freeze the blood of almost any other vertebrate. These fish are unusual in another way as well. They lack red blood cells and hemoglobin, giving their blood a pale, translucent appearance. Instead of using hemoglobin to carry oxygen, they rely on oxygen dissolving directly into their blood plasma. Aided by the high oxygen content of cold Antarctic waters, they move slowly and deliberately through their frozen world, conserving energy in every gesture. In the stillness beneath the ice, the icefish drifts, ghostly and elegant, a creature built for a world of cold that would kill almost anything else. The Abyssal Plain is the flattest place on Earth. Forget deserts or dried lake beds. The flattest surfaces on the planet are found at the bottom of the ocean. The Abyssal Plains, vast expanses of ocean floor lying between 10,000 and 20,000 feet below the surface, stretch for thousands of miles with barely a ripple in their terrain. They're covered in a thick blanket of fine sediment, the accumulated marine snow of millions of years, creating a soft, featureless landscape that extends in every direction. Despite their emptiness, these plains are not lifeless. Sea cucumbers, brittle stars, and burrowing worms make their homes in the sediment, feeding on the organic particles that slowly rain down from above. The Abyssal Plain is the quietest place on Earth. No storms, number seasons, no sound beyond the faintest currents, just soft mud, gentle pressure, and the slow, patient rhythm of deep time. A vast, hidden flatland where stillness is not absence, but a form of peace. Some sea slugs can photosynthesize, like plants, in the shallow waters of tropical and temperate seas. Certain sea slugs perform a trick that blurs the line between animal and plant. They steal chloroplasts, the photosynthetic engines of algae, and incorporate them into their own bodies. The emerald sea slug, Elysia, feeds on algae and retains the chloroplasts in the cells lining its gut. These stolen chloroplasts continue to function, converting sunlight into energy. For weeks or even months, the slug can survive on photosynthesis alone. Like a leaf with legs, the slug's body is often a vivid green, and when it spreads its parapodia, the wing-like extensions of its body, it looks almost like a tiny, living leaf soaking up the sun. Scientists are still unraveling how the slug's cells support the foreign chloroplasts without rejecting them. But in this small, translucent animal, the boundary between plant and animal becomes beautifully blurred. The ocean stores 50 times more carbon than the atmosphere. The ocean is the planet's largest carbon reservoir. It holds an estimated 38,000 gigatons of carbon, roughly 50 times more than the atmosphere. This carbon exists in many forms, dissolved in the water, stored in sediments, locked in the bodies of marine organisms, and cycling through the food web. Surface waters absorb carbon dioxide from the air. Phytoplankton incorporate it into their cells. When these organisms die, they sink, carrying carbon with them to the deep ocean, where it may remain for centuries or millennia. This process, sometimes called the biological carbon pump, is one of the most important mechanisms regulating Earth's climate. Without it, atmospheric CO2 levels would be dramatically higher, and the planet would be far warmer. The ocean doesn't just hold water. It holds time, chemistry, and balance. A quiet, immense reservoir of carbon, breathing slowly beneath the surface, keeping the world in check. The Weddell seal can hold its breath for over an hour in the icy waters of Antarctica. The Weddell seal dives deep beneath the frozen surface, disappearing into a world of blue-black cold. It can hold its breath for more than 80 minutes and dive to depths of over 2,000 feet to achieve this. The seal's body undergoes remarkable changes. Its heart rate slows dramatically. Blood flow is redirected to the brain and vital organs. Its muscles store large quantities of oxygen in a protein called myoglobin, giving them a deep, rich color. The seal's spleen acts like a biological oxygen tank, releasing extra red blood cells into the bloodstream during dives. And when it needs to surface, it can find breathing holes in the ice using echolocation like clicks, and by gnawing new holes with its teeth in the freezing silence beneath the ice. The Weddell seal moves with calm precision, a warm-blooded mammal thriving in one of the coldest environments on Earth. Each dive is a quiet act of endurance, a held breath, a slow heartbeat, and a return to the light. Coral polyps are related to jellyfish. At first glance, corals and jellyfish seem like entirely different creatures. One is fixed in place, building reefs that last millennia. The other drifts through open water, pulsing and translucent. But they're closer relatives than you might think. Both belong to the phylum Cnidaria, a group of animals defined by their stinging cells called ctenocytes. These cells contain tiny harpoon-like structures that fire when triggered, delivering toxins to prey or predators. Coral polyps, like jellyfish, have soft, tubular bodies with a ring of tentacles around a central mouth. They catch plankton and small organisms from the water, digesting them in a simple gut cavity. The main difference is lifestyle. Corals settle down, build calcium carbonate skeletons, and form colonies. Jellyfish remain free, drifting with the currents. But at the cellular level, they're remarkably similar. Siblings separated by habit rather than heritage. In the reef's quiet architecture, the ancient kinship echoes, builder and drifter, rooted and free, yet family, all the same. The ocean moderates Earth's temperature. Without the ocean, Earth's climate would be far more extreme. The sea absorbs heat from the sun during the day and releases it slowly at night. It stores warmth in summer and releases it in winter. This massive thermal buffer helps stabilize temperatures around the globe. Coastal areas tend to have milder climates than inland regions for exactly this reason. The ocean's enormous heat capacity smooths out the peaks and valleys of temperature that the land cannot. Ocean currents carry warm water toward the poles and cold water toward the equator, distributing heat across latitudes and influencing weather patterns far from shore. The Gulf Stream, for example, carries warm water from the Gulf of Mexico across the Atlantic, keeping Western Europe warmer than it would otherwise be at those latitudes. The ocean is not just a body of water. It's a thermostat, a regulator, a a silent force that keeps the planet livable. Sperm whales sleep vertically in the open ocean, far from shore. Something strange and beautiful happens. Sperm whales, those massive, deep-diving hunters, fall into a peculiar kind of sleep. They hang motionless in the water, perfectly vertical, heads pointed toward the surface, tails dangling into the dark. They drift like this in small groups, suspended between breaths for periods of about 10 to 15 minutes at a time. Scientists discovered this behavior in 2008 when a research vessel accidentally drifted into a pod of sleeping whales. None of the animals reacted until the ship was almost upon them. Sperm whales are believed to sleep for only about 7% of the day, making them one of the least sleep-dependent mammals known. But in those brief moments of rest, they enter a state of complete stillness, floating upright in the deep like living pillars. It's a sight that's both eerie and profoundly peaceful. Giants at rest in the cathedral of the sea. The ocean contains the world's largest waterfall. The tallest waterfall on Earth isn't on land, it's underwater. In the Denmark Strait, between Iceland and Greenland, cold, dense Arctic water plunges beneath warmer Atlantic water in a massive underwater cascade. This cataract, driven by differences in water temperature and density, drops more than 11,500 feet, over 3 times the height of Angel Falls in Venezuela. The tallest waterfall on land. The flow is enormous, carrying roughly 175 million cubic feet of water per second. You can't see it from the surface. There's no roar, no mist, no rainbow. It happens entirely beneath the waves, silent and powerful. This underwater waterfall is part of the ocean's global circulation system, helping to drive the thermaline conveyor belt that distributes heat and nutrients around the planet. In the deep Atlantic, a river falls through the sea, invisible, immense, and endlessly flowing. Coral spawning is synchronized by the moon. On certain nights each year, something magical happens on coral reefs around the world. Under the light of a full moon, corals simultaneously release their eggs and sperm into the water in a mass spawning event that turns the sea into a blizzard of life. The timing is extraordinary. Thousands of individual corals, sometimes entire reef systems spanning hundreds of miles, spawn within the same few hours. The event is triggered by a combination of factors: water temperature, day length, and the phase of the moon. For a brief window, the water fills with tiny pink, orange, and white bundles, drifting upward like snow falling in reverse. These bundles contain both eggs and sperm, which separates at the surface, mix with those from other corals, and begin the slow process of fertilization. It's one of the most spectacular reproductive events in nature. Though these animals are stationary, they still dance to the rhythm of celestial bodies. In the quiet reef, the moon calls and life answers. Some sharks must never stop swimming. Not all sharks have the luxury of rest. Many species, including the great white and the mako, are obligate ram ventilators, meaning they must keep swimming to breathe. They rely on forward motion to push water over their gills and extract oxygen. If they stop, they suffocate. So they swim, constantly, relentlessly, from the moment they're born until the moment they die. Some may enter periods of reduced activity, gliding on currents, or slowing down in areas with strong water flow. But true stillness is something they can never fully achieve. There's something both beautiful and melancholy in this. A creature that must always move, always press forward, carried by biology into perpetual motion. In the vast blue, the shark glides on, tireless and ancient, a life defined by the act of moving through the world. Sea otters have the densest fur of any mammal. Sea otters don't have blubber like seals or whales. Instead, they rely on the densest fur in the animal kingdom to keep warm in the cold Pacific waters. Their coat contains up to 1 million hair follicles per square inch, creating a virtually waterproof barrier that traps a layer of air against their skin. This insulating layer keeps the cold water from ever touching their bodies, but it requires constant maintenance. Sea otters spend a significant portion of their day grooming, carefully cleaning and fluffing their fur to maintain its insulating properties. If their fur becomes matted or oiled, the insulation fails, and hypothermia can set in quickly. To fuel this high level of maintenance and the energy needed to stay warm, sea otters eat roughly a quarter of their body weight every day. They dine on sea urchins, crabs, clams, and other shellfish, often using rocks as tools to crack open their meals while floating on their backs. In the kelp forests of the Pacific, the sea otter grooms, eats, plays, and sleeps, wrapped in the warmest coat the ocean has ever made. The ocean's color comes from how it absorbs light. The sea isn't blue because it reflects the sky. It's blue because of the water itself. When sunlight enters the ocean, the water absorbs the longer wavelengths of light, reds, oranges, and yellows, more readily than the shorter wavelengths. Blue light, with its shorter wavelength, penetrates deepest and is scattered in all directions, giving the ocean its characteristic hue. In clear, deep water, the blue can be rich and vivid. In coastal areas with more sediment, algae, or dissolved matter, the color shifts toward green, turquoise, or even brown. The color of the sea tells a story about what's in it, how deep it is, and what lives beneath the surface. In the Arctic, icebergs glow a luminous blue because the compressed ice absorbs red light. In tropical lagoons, the turquoise shimmer comes from sunlight, bouncing off white sand through shallow water. Every shade of the ocean is a dialogue between light and water, a quiet painting that changes with the time of day, the depth, and the life within. Some whales can live for over 200 years. The bowhead whale, a massive, slow-moving inhabitant of Arctic waters, is among the longest-lived mammals on Earth. Some individuals are believed to have lived for more than 200 years. Scientists have estimated their ages by analyzing amino acid changes in the lenses of their eyes and by studying stone, harpoon tips found embedded in their blubber. Relics of whaling expeditions from the 1800s, still carried by living whales. Bowheads grow slowly, reproduce infrequently, and move through the icy waters with a quiet, unhurried grace. Their thick blubber, the heaviest of any whale, insulates them against frigid temperatures and may play a role in their longevity. They've outlived empires. They were alive before the invention of the telephone, the airplane, or the light bulb, and some of them are still swimming right now, carrying centuries of memory beneath the ice. Underwater caves hold fossils millions of years old, hidden beneath coastlines and islands around the world. Underwater caves preserve some of the most extraordinary records of Earth's past. These submerged chambers, many of which were once dry during periods of lower sea levels, contain fossils, stalactites, and archaeological artifacts sealed in crystalline water in Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. The cenotes and their connected cave systems hold the bones of Ice Age animals, giant ground sloths, saber-toothed cats, and ancient humans. Some remains are over 10,000 years old, preserved in the mineral-rich water with astonishing clarity in the Mediterranean. Underwater caves have revealed paintings, tools, and evidence of early human habitation, all submerged when sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age. These caves are time capsules, places where the past is held in suspension. Every dive into their depths is a journey backward through millennia. In the quiet dark of flooded stone, history waits, undisturbed, perfectly still. And now, with the final fact softly settled into place, let the world grow quiet around you. We've wandered through sunlit shallows and midnight trenches, along coral reefs and frozen Arctic shores, through kelp forests and brine pools, following the songs of whales and the glow of drifting plankton. And through it all, a single truth echoes gently beneath the surface. The sea is extraordinary, not because it is perfect, but because it endures. It adapts, it shelters, and it continues to astonish us. Somewhere right now, a dolphin is calling another by name. A coral is spawning under moonlight. A jellyfish is rewinding its own life. A wave born 1,000 miles away is breaking softly on a shore. You are part of this story, too. Not separate from the sea, but made of it. Your blood carries the same salt. Your body holds the same water. You are a wave that rose from the ocean of life and found a shape, a heartbeat, a name. So wherever you are, allow your mind to rest. Let your breath slow like the tide going out. Let your thoughts grow soft at the edges, like sand smoothed by 10,000 waves. The journey doesn't end. It simply pauses here until curiosity calls again. Sleep well, and thank you for drifting with us.